Good morning, grade 4. Let's start our new story, Invasion from Mars. Let's read it together. But before we start reading, let's go to page 173. I want you to read something very important before we start.
Performance arts. The performance arts include dancing, singing, acting, playing musical instruments, and reading stories in front of an audience. Often people go to a theater or concert hall to see performances, but radio and television carry live and recorded performances too. One of the most famous radio performances in history was a live broadcast of a science fiction drama based on a book called The War of the Worlds. You are about to read an excerpt, or a part, of that famous performance. You'll find out why it shocked America.
So, as you listen now, this story is taken from a book called The War of the Worlds. So, the story that we will read is a science fiction. But before we start, I need to focus your attention to something that art, as we read now, art is not only drawing. Art can be singing, dancing, acting, playing musical instrument, and reading stories in front of an audience. So art is not only drawing. Singing is an art. Dancing is a kind of art. Acting, playing musical instruments, reading stories in front of an audience, all of these are kinds of art. Let's have a look down at the picture. Can you tell me what kind of art is this? Pause the video and think. What kind of art is this? As you see here in the picture, there are some people there are playing musical instruments. Here I have one group is reading script, and here I have a microphone is labeled CBC. So can you think what kind of art is this? It's a radio performance. It's a radio performance. So before we start reading, can you have a look at the story itself and tell me what's the genre of the story? Before we start reading, have a look at the story itself and tell me what's the genre. What's the genre of the story? Pause the video and think. Here I have names are written before someone speaks. Here I have the names written in boldface before someone speaks. And also I have a dialogue. And if I turn more the page, I'll find out here I have a stage direction. So since I have a stage direction, I have names that were written before someone speaks, and I have a dialogue. So this story is a play. Super. So this story is a play. Why it's a play? Because I have a dialogue. As you saw here, I have names were written before someone started to speak. I have also stage direction. So since I have stage direction, names are written before someone speaks, I have a dialogue. All of these are elements of a play. But what kind of play is this story, Invasion from Mars? Invasion from Mars is a radio play. It's not a play that was acted on a stage. No, Invasion from Mars is a radio play. What's meant by a radio play? It's like the same picture here that we saw in 173. People were acting this play in a studio. People were acting this play in a studio, and then people listened to this play on the radio. That's why here in the picture we have the actors who were acting, and then we have people at the back who were playing the musical instrument, which is the sound effect of the play. And then the people listened to this play on the radio. So Invasion from Mars is a radio play. So the actors acted this play in the studio. And then people listened to them on the radio. That's why It's written here, Invasion from Mars, a radio play by Howard Koch, illustrated by J.T. Morrow. Grade 4, as I said, a radio play by Howard Koch. Howard Koch, the one who wrote the play, the one who wrote it the way you see here in the book. He is the author, the one who created the characters, and the one who wrote the play in the way you see now. And I have the illustrator J.T. Morrow, the one who drew the pictures of the play. As you see down here is one of the pictures. Alright, let's start reading.
On the night of October 30th, 1938, Orson Welles and the Mercury Theater Company broadcast the radio play Invasion from Mars, adapted from the novel The War of the Worlds by H.G. Wells. Listeners who tuned in after the broadcast began were alarmed by what they heard. In this scene from the play, newsman Carl Phillips is broadcasting live from the New Jersey farm where a strange metal cylinder has crash landed. How would you have reacted to hearing these words on your radio? Phillips: well, I've never seen anything like it. The color is sort of yellowish white. Curious spectators now are pressing close to the object, in spite of the efforts of the police to keep them back. They're getting in front of my line of vision. Would you mind standing on one side, please? Policeman: one side, there, one side. Phillips: while the policemen are pushing the crowd back, here's Mr. Wilmoth, the owner of the farm here. He may have some interesting facts to add. Mr. Wilmoth, would you please tell the radio audience as much as you remember of this rather unusual visitor that dropped in your backyard? Step closer, please. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Mr. Wilmoth. Wilmoth: I was listening to the radio. Phillips: closer and louder, please. Wilmoth: pardon me? Phillips: louder, please, and closer. Wilmoth: yes, sir. While I was listening to the radio and kind of drowsing, that professor fellow was talking about Mars. So I was half dozing and half...
So here, as I said, grade 4, this play was taken from the book, from the novel The War of the Worlds. Here I have the director. He's a very famous director, Orson Welles. Orson Welles is a very famous director who took the idea from the book and he acted it in a real studio. This happened in 1938. When people in America tuned in the radio when this play began, they were shocked and they were alarmed by everything they heard. Why they were alarmed and why they were shocked? Because, as I told you, this play is a science fiction play. So when people in America, they weren't fully aware of the radio. So when they tuned in the radio, they thought it was real. They thought that what was happening was real. They don't know that it was just an acting play. They don't know that it was a science fiction play. So when people tuned in the radio, especially that the play began in the radio, they thought that it was real. So people screamed and they were running everywhere in the street. They thought that it was the end of the world. So that's why people in America were shocked when they tuned in the radio and they heard this radio science fiction radio play. Here, can you guess, grade 4, what's Philip's main job here in the play? What was his main job here in the play? Can you guess what was Philip's job here in the play? You can get some clues that will help you to know. Actually, Phillips here is the reporter. He's the newsman. Phillips is the newsman. Phillips is the reporter of the play. Is gonna explain or is going to report every single detail happening. Here I have a dialogue between Phillips, the reporter, and Wilmeth, the owner of the farm. Wilmeth, the reporter, is trying to investigate, is trying to understand what's happening, what's going on. What is this strange metal cylinder that has crash landed on the farm? He's trying to ask the owner of the farm, what is this strange metal and from where it came from? Can you look at the picture and describe it, grade 4? I want you all to pause the video and describe this picture. Here we have a strange metal cylinder with a deep hole in the middle. Curious people were standing around the object. They were asking themselves, what is this? And from where did it come from? Policemen were trying to keep people back from this object. Here we have Phillips, the reporter, described every single detail happening here in the scene. Can you look at this strange metal cylinder and tell me from where did it come from? Actually, I have some clues that will help me to know from where did it come from. If I look up here at the end of the dialogue, I'll find Wilmeth said, while I was listening to the radio and kinda drowsing. Drowsing means sleepy. That Professor Fellow was talking about Mars, so I was half dozing and half. Actually, here, Wilmeth, the owner of the farm, was listening to the radio, and he was listening to a professor who was talking about planet Mars. Since the name of the play is Invasion from Mars, and here Wilmeth, the owner of the farm, was listening to a professor who was talking about planet Mars, so actually this strange metal cylinder came from planet Mars.
Phillips. Yes, Mr. Wilmeth. Then what happened? Wilmeth. As I was saying, I was listening to the radio, kinda halfways. Phillips. Yes, Mr. Wilmeth. And then you saw something? Wilmeth. Not first off. I heard something. Phillips. And what did you hear? Wilmeth. A hissing sound, like this. Kind of like a 4th of July rocket. Phillips. Then what? Wilmeth. Turned my head out the window and would have swore I was to sleep and dreaming. Phillips. Yes? Wilmeth. I seen a kind of greenish streak, and then zingo! Something smacked the ground, knocked me clear out of my chair. Phillips. Well, were you frightened, Mr. Wilmeth. Well, I ain't quite sure. I reckon I was kind of riled. Phillips. Thank you, Mr. Wilmeth, thank you. Wilmeth. Want me to tell you some more? Phillips. No, that's quite all right. That's plenty.
So still here we're having the same conversation between Phillips and Wilmeth. Phillips is insisting to ask Wilmeth special questions because he only wants to hear the part that his audience will be interested in. That's why he was insisting to ask him special questions. Actually, Wilmeth answered him and told him that while I was listening, I was kinda halfways. What's meant by kinda halfways? It's here. Kinda halfways means like he wasn't fully listening to the radio. He was falling asleep while he was listening to the radio. Like he was having half mind. He wasn't fully listening to the radio. He was falling asleep while he was listening to the radio. So when he saw this green object coming from far away, he thought that it was a dream because he was falling asleep. So when he saw this green object coming, he thought that it was a dream. I want to pay your attention here, grade 4. I want to pay your attention to something. There is a big difference between Philip's language and Wilmeth's language. Phillips is speaking in a formal way because he is a reporter. But Wilmeth, owner of the farm, was always speaking in an informal way. Let me show you some examples. Look here. See here, saying. He dropped the G instead of saying. Saying, he said saying. And also here, listening. He dropped the G. This is a slang word. This is informal way of speaking. Also, when he said here, 4th, it should be 4th of July, but he said 4th. It's a slang word. It's an informal way of speaking. Also here, dreaming. See, he dropped the G. Kinda. Do you know what kinda? Kinda means kind of. But instead of saying kind of in a formal way, he said kinda. So Wilmeth is using an informal way of speaking. He's using slang words. Even here, if you look up, turned my head, he even dropped the subject. Remember the subject and the predicate? Whenever we write a sentence, we should have subject, the name or whom the sentence is about, and the action. He started with the action, turned my head. and he dropped the subject. This is also an informal way. He should say, I turned my head, but he dropped the subject. He dropped I. Even here, would have swore. This is an informal way. If I want to write it in a formal way, I will write could have swore. So there is a big difference between Phillips, the reporter's language, and Wilmeth's language.
Phillips. Ladies and gentlemen, you've just heard Mr. Wilmoth, owner of the farm where this thing has fallen. I wish I could convey the atmosphere, the background of this fantastic scene. Hundreds of cars are parked in a field in back of us. Police are trying to rope off the roadway leading into the farm, but it's no use. They're breaking right through. Their headlights throw an enormous spot on the pit where the object's half buried. Some of the more daring souls are venturing near the edge. Their silhouettes stand out against the metal sheen. Faint humming sound. One man wants to touch the thing. He's having an argument with a policeman. The policeman wins. Now, ladies and gentlemen, there's something I haven't mentioned in all this excitement, but it's becoming more distinct. Perhaps you've caught it already on your radio. Listen. Long pause.
All right, here, grade 4, the author conveyed the atmosphere. What's the meaning of convey? Remember show? Yeah. He showed us everything, every single detail happening in the scene. He described everything happening here. People, cars, headlights, the object. He described everything happening in the scene. He conveyed every single detail happening. The cars that are parking in the field, and even the headlights of the car that were shining on the object. He described everything. Why he was describing everything? Because don't forget that this is a radio play. You're not watching something on a stage. You're just listening to the radio. So it's very important for the reporter, for the newsman to show you everything so you can imagine what's happening and what's going on. Look at the picture, grade 4. Was this reflecting a special time period in which the play took place? Of course, it was reflecting a special time period. Remember when I told you that this play was in 1938? So, of course, if I look at the hats, cars, how the people got dressed, of course, it's reflecting a special time period. Everything was old. See how the people got dressed, the hats, cars. So, of course, it's reflecting a special time period because everything is old. All right, let's continue.
Do you hear it? It's a curious humming sound that seems to come from inside the object. I'll move the microphone nearer. Here. Pause. Now we're not more than 25 feet away. Can you hear it now? Oh, Professor Pearson!
Here, grade 4, before we continue reading, here Phillips, the reporter, is asking, can you hear it? He's trying to grab the audience attention. When he said there is a sound, can you hear it? Look here, grade 4. Between here in the stage direction, I have faint humming sound. What is faint humming sound? And why the author here is using the sound and why he is describing the sound? Because, as I said again, this is a radio play. It's not a play that was acted on a stage. No, it's a radio play. So, you should know everything happening on a radio because you only depend on your ears. You only depend on the sound itself. So, here the author cannot use something that's been acted by body. No, he's explaining everything happening by sound. That's why he said here faint humming sound. And everything the author will write in the stage direction, it's related to sound, not body language. It's only sound. Why it's only sound? Because it's a radio play. So you're only depending on the sound and the sound effect and everything. All right.
Pearson. Yes, Mr. Phillips? Phillips. Can you tell us the meaning of that scraping noise inside the thing? Pearson. Possibly the unequal cooling of its surface. Phillips. Do you still think it's a meteor, Professor? Pearson. I don't know what to think. The metal casing is definitely extraterrestrial, not found on this Earth. Friction with the Earth's atmosphere usually tears holes in a meteorite. This thing is smooth and, as you can see, of cylindrical shape.
All right, here Phillips, the reporter. Here we have a new dialogue between Phillips and Pearson. Who's Pearson? Pearson, he is a science professor. Phillips met him here. So when he met him, he asked him, "What is this, professor? What's going on? What is this strange metal cylinder? We don't know what's this. Is this a meteor?" Do you know, grade 4, what's a meteor? Meteor is a rocky body in outer space. So Phillips, the reporter, he was guessing maybe this rocky body has crash landed on the farm. Maybe this strange metal cylinder is a meteor, a rocky body from outer space. So that's why he was asking Pearson, Professor Pearson, the science professor, is this a meteor? So the science professor told him, actually, this strange metal cylinder is weird, and he doesn't know what is this. And he told him that the meteor is rocky. This means that the meteor's body is rough. However, this cylinder is smooth, so he doesn't think so. So still, they were investigating what is this strange metal cylinder. All right.
Phillips. Just a minute. Something's happening. Ladies and gentlemen, this is terrific. This end of the thing is beginning to flake off. The top is beginning to rotate like a screw. The thing must be hollow. Voices. She's a-moving. Look, the darn thing's unscrewing. Keep back there. Keep back, I tell you. Maybe there's men in it trying to escape. It's red hot. They'll burn to a cinder. Keep back there. Keep those idiots back. Suddenly, the clanking sound of a huge piece of falling metal. Voices. She's off. The top's loose. Look out there. Stand back.
So as I said again, grade 4, here is the stage direction. And if you look at the stage direction between brackets, the author is using sound effects. He's not using body language. He's using sound effect. Why he's using sound effects? Because, as I said, it's a radio play. It's not a play. It's a radio play. So that's why the author is only depending on the sound effects. He's depending on the sound. And the sound effects are very important in the play, are very important in the radio play. Because the sound effects makes the radio play more realistic. The sound effects make the radio play more realistic, more realistic. Here Phillips, he said here at the beginning, he said this is terrific. What does he mean by terrific? Does he mean something good or something causing terror? I think from the dialogue that we read together that there is something causing terror. It's not something good, it's something causing terror. Especially here that the author added voices. What does he mean by voices? Voices means the sound of the crowd, the sound of the people, at the same time, the sound of the police. So people there, they said, look, the darn thing's unscrewing. Means that the top of the cylinder here is unscrewing. And then people were screaming. And then the police at the same time was saying, keep back there, keep back. So here the voices, the author here added in voices the sound of the crowd at the same time the sound of the police, both of them, in this dialogue.
Phillips. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the most terrifying thing I have ever witnessed. Wait a minute. Someone's crawling out of the hollow top. Someone or something. I can see peering out of that black hole two luminous discs. Are they eyes? It might be a face. It might be... Shout of awe from the crowd. Phillips. Good heavens, something's wriggling out of the shadow like a gray snake. Now it's another one and another. They look like tentacles to me. There, I can see the thing's body. It's large as a bear, and it glistens like wet leather. But that face, it's indescribable. I can hardly force myself to keep looking at it. The eyes are black and gleam like a serpent. The mouth is V-shaped, with saliva dripping from its rimless lips that seem to quiver and pulsate. The monster, or whatever it is, can hardly move. It seems weighed down by possibly gravity or something. The thing's raising up. The crowd falls back. They've seen enough. This is the most extraordinary experience. I can't find words. I'm pulling this microphone with me as I talk. I'll have to stop the description until I've taken a new position. Hold on, will you please? I'll be back in a minute. Fade into piano.
So here now, grade 4, you will find Phillips, the reporter, started to describe this weird creature that came out of the cylinder. As you see here, the description, actually, if you look up the description, you'll find out that it matches the picture in front of you. As you see here, he said 2 luminous discs. He meant the eyes. When he said mouth is V-shaped, here, look at the mouth, it's V-shaped. And he said saliva dripping. Saliva means the water that's dripping from his mouth. He said with rhymeless lips, means like this creature doesn't have lips. So if you look at the description here, and if you read the description, you'll find out that it matches the picture. Here we have, in the stage direction, shout of awe from the crowd. Again, grade 4, in the stage direction, he is describing the sound effect. There is no body language. It's only sound effect because it's a radio play. Here, fade into piano. This means that Phillips, the news reporter, will pause, and then he'll be back. That's why if you look here down grade 4, you'll find Phillips said, "I'll have to stop the description until I've taken a new position. Hold on, will you please? I'll be back in a minute." That means that Phillips needs to pause this live recording and he needs to change his position. Maybe he was near this alien, or maybe this alien or this creature was near to him. That's why he needs to pause the live recording and he needs to change his position. That's why in a radio show there should be an announcer who was filling his place. There should be an announcer in a studio, and the reporter should be live in the place itself. Now Philip needs to pause to change his position, so the announcer will fill his place in the studio itself. If you look here, if we turn the page, you will find this. Here we have announcer 2 who's going to fill Philip's place, but this announcer in the studio, he's waiting till Phillips is ready to be back again in the live recording, to be back again in the field itself. So that's why grade 4 here we have announcer 2. Let's listen.
Announcer 2. We are bringing you an eyewitness account of what's happening on the Wilmoth Farm, Grover's Mill, New Jersey. More piano. We now return you to Carl Phillips at Grover's Mill.
So now, as you see, announcer here, announcer 2, who was in the studio, who was filling Phillips' place till Phillips is ready to be back live in the field. He said, now we are ready. Now we'll be back. Now Phillips is ready. So here, that's why Phillips down said,
Phillips. Ladies and gentlemen, am I on? Ladies and gentlemen, here I am.
So here, Philip said, am I on? He want to make sure that he's live in the field. He want to make sure that all the people now were listening to him live in the field.
A stone wall that adjoins Mr. Wilmot's garden. From here, I get a sweep of the whole scene. I'll give you every detail as long as I can talk, as long as I can see. More state police have arrived. They're drawing up a cordon in front of the pit. About 30 of them. No need to push the crowd back now. They're willing to keep their distance. The captain is conferring with someone. We can't quite see who. Oh, yes, I believe it's Professor Pearson. Yes, it is. Now they've parted. The professor moves around one side, studying the object, while the captain and two policemen advance with something in their hands. I can see it now. It's a white handkerchief tied to a pole, a flag of truce. If those creatures know what that means, what anything means. Wait, something's happening. Hissing sound followed by a humming that increases in intensity.
So all the people now were staring, looking at this creature, wondering what is this and what this creature will do. All the people were wondering, were staring, looking, and they were thinking what will happen and what this creature will do. People were investigating. Phillips, Professor Pearson, all the people were talking together. They need to know what is this. They need to know what's going on and what this creature will do. So if you look up in the picture, you'll find that the policemen, they raised a flag of truce. What's a flag of truce? Truce is a symbol of peace. They were trying to raise this flag as if they want to send these monsters or alien creatures a message that they need peace. They don't want something. They only need peace. And they don't want something else. But we don't know if these creatures would understand the message or no, because actually these creatures, as I said, they were coming from planet Mars, so we don't know if they will get the message or no. But the policemen were trying to send them a message that they need peace. They don't want anything else. But we don't know what will happen. We don't know if they will get the message or no. As we see down, here we have the stage direction, hissing sound followed by a humming that increases in intensity. This means that the sound, he's describing the sound of the creatures. He's describing the sound that's coming out from the creature. He said hissing sound followed by a humming sound. See, like like that. Here, this is the sound that's coming out from the creature. We don't know what will happen. We'll see. Actually, if I look if I read the stage direction, I'll understand everything. I have here in the stage direction, which is the sound effect here, screams and unearthly shrieks. And then in the second sound effect or the second stage direction, I have explosion. And then I have crash of microphone and then dead silence. So I understand a lot from the stage direction, which is the sound effect, which makes the play more realistic. Here, if I look at the picture down, you'll see what's going on. Here, as you see, the fire is spreading everywhere in the field, and even down, they said that that Phillips, he put the microphone down and he started to run away. He's starting to run away from the fire. Fire is everywhere in the farm, so I think you can guess what happened at the end. All right, now that's the end of the play.